are going to be talking about a film that's got a number 2 in the title, Thomas, but it's not a sequel. It's Juror number 2. And no, don't go looking for Juror number 1 before this. You don't have to look at another film in order to get to enjoy and appreciate maybe aspects of this film from 94-year-old Clint Eastwood. Let's get some thoughts from you, man, on what this guy's doing, and does he still got it?
Man, so we were talking about how, Ridley Scott, he's pretty up there in age, but just think about this. Clint Eastwood was graduating high school when Ridley Scott was still in elementary school. So, and these guys are still making movies on practically a yearly basis. 94-year-old Clint Eastwood, few cinematic icons that have the stature that he's created for himself. Obviously starting off in the Westerns back in the 60s and many decades-long career in front of the camera and then stepping behind the camera. I guess it was sometime in the 80s or 90s where he started taking that approach. And that he's been so about 60 years total working on films. And this the Courtroom drama, it might be his final film before retirement, but it still just has this energy of someone who you can tell just his curiosity for telling stories and for making art that, obviously comes from somewhere deep within inside him. It's all there. The story, the plot itself, you can pick it apart all day long, but I think ultimately none of that is important to me as a viewer and to a lot of people watching this movie, because all those, you could call them plot contrivances, not necessarily plot holes, but, things that are in there that are convenient and kind of move the story along. But it's all a method of getting you to feel something that at the end of the day just feels so incredibly real and authentic, that you don't really care how you got to those emotions.
Yeah, this film, Thomas, Juror number 2, to me is another testament to Eastwood's skill behind the camera. He's proving to me that age has really not diminished how he's able to tell stories. As you said, even if the stories have some of those little, I don't know about that. But for some reason, you're distracted by everything else to me that's good in this film. And the themes in this film are just so strong and solid to me that these are really positives that when you're looking at justice, of course, when you're talking about courtroom dramas, but also exploring what does it mean, what does truth really mean, and how does that compare when you're looking at self-preservation, and then questions about can people really change? All those things are here in this film. So justice versus self-preservation, truth and morality, and also redemption. Can somebody make amends for their past actions, or are they doomed to repeat them? Those moral dilemmas kind of lie at the heart of the story for me. So those are all things that really, really connected with me. Also the cast, I thought the supporting cast really strong. I'm going to talk about them first. Kiefer Sutherland, J.K. Simmons. They round out that kind of supporting cast, and I thought they added some depth and intensity to the story. Simmons, in particular, shined for me. He was not on screen a lot, but when he did, he was commanding, and I really like his character. But Nicholas Hoult, man, he delivers really a compelling performance. He carries the emotional weight of this film, and without him, I would still think it'd be a good film, but there's just something about him. He brings this nuance to a character that's torn between what's doing what's right and also looking at some internal questions. If we'd had somebody like that in Gladiator 2, I'm wondering what that may look like, to have that character that just really commands your attention. Toni Collette, usually a powerhouse, but her performance here was kind of a drawback. Her Southern accent felt kind of forced, and the thing is, there were times she had the Southern accent and other times she didn't. So that was an interesting dynamic for me. But I don't know that anybody else really had that strong Southern accent. Everybody else was just kind of talking like they were. And it worked. It didn't bother me. It took place in Savannah, Georgia, I believe. So maybe that's where she was wanting to do that. But those are just some of the things I wanted to make sure I shared. And we've got really just about 4 minutes, but there's so much we could talk about with this film.
Oh, yeah. So, just a quick note on the accent thing. I think a good comparison, you look at Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch. When she was first introduced to the MCU, she had, that thick Eastern European accent from the fictional country of Sokovia.
No, it's in this, but it is not paprika. I'm gonna go to the store. I'll be back in 20 minutes.
Well, over time, she just kind of dropped that accent, and now she just talks like Elizabeth Olsen. I think Toni Collette had a similar experience with this. She starts leaning really heavily into that South Georgia accent, but it's really not there by the end of the movie. But that's just a small nitpicky thing, because everything else in this movie, I think you and I started watching this, it was probably about midnight, and it's got to be a really, really fascinating film to keep us engaged for 2 straight hours up until about 2 a.m. And that's what this movie did. Talking about Nicholas Hoult, he's wrestling with these questions and trying to tell himself different versions of the truth, and trying to tell himself the version of the truth that he thinks is going to be best for him and for his family, his wife, and then the baby that they have on the way. And just that massive internal conflict within him, he just plays that so well. It's a very tortured performance, and you can't help but wonder, okay, if any one of us was in a situation that, pretty unbelievable situation, but just try to place yourself in his shoes, and just the empathy that he establishes there is it's just really brilliant. Nicholas Hoult, he's had a great year. He's got this, The Order as well, which we had him on the show to answer a couple questions. And then he also has Nosferatu coming up this year as well. And then he's going to be a Lex Luthor in James Gunn's Superman coming up. So he's a guy that I think for years he's just been continuing to put in the work and take on interesting projects. And to see him in Eastwood's perhaps final film and just be given a role to deliver on all fronts like this, very happy to see what he did here.
I thought the editing was really strong in this film as well, Thomas. It kept you engaged to be able to balance what's happening within a courtroom, and then also with flashbacks, and then what's happening in the lives of those kind of on the outside. That balance was truly there for me. And something else that really stuck with me, this film had an emotional connection, and one that really was strong, that you were feeling for characters, and not just Nicholas Hoult's character and his wife, but also there was another key character who was basically being accused of a crime, and you found yourself feeling for that character as well. So just such a solid film to me. I'm so glad we watched it, and it is one that I'll go back to, and it's one that I'm going to recommend to others that are looking for a solid drama, because that is exactly what this is. It's a gripping drama. It's got moral depth, and for me, Thomas, I continue to think about this film after I watched it.
It really exceeded all of our expectations, and has solidified itself on what's probably going to be, our top 10 or top however many movies of the year. It's going to be one that I'm going to be championing as we go into voting this award season. That's for sure.
Absolutely glad we got a chance to check it out. Juror number 2 gets a solid B+ from me right here on Meet Me at the Movies. Clint Eastwood, well done, well done, well done. Thomas, your rating for Juror number 2?
I'll give a solid A- to Juror number 2.
Won't you come and watch a